Good morning. I want to offer you just a little bit of thought on the diction in the poem Fate's Worse Than Death by Scott Owens. And I'm going to kind of take this stanza by stanza, pointing out the things that I'm noticing or the things that stood out to me. These are certainly not the only things that we could say about diction in the poem, but there's some interesting things here. In stanza one, the thing that stood out most to me were those lists in the middle of the stanza. The burning, drowning, beating, crushing, starving, etc. And these are all things that are posed as potentially things that are a fate worse than death. When you contrast those two lists, though, what I notice is that the first one tends to be things that are physical in nature. The pain of being burned, the pain of being beaten, while the second tends to be mental in nature. There might be a physical component to something like paralysis, but the horror of paralysis is not physical pain, it's the mental condition of being unable to move. The other thing that I notice about stanza 1 is that if you look down the left-hand side, you see one, others, one. These are very impersonal. We don't know who these people are, and they are not clearly defined individuals in the poem. If we move to stanza 2, there are a couple of things that I would point out. First, I think it's hard to read that stanza and not have kind of a visceral reaction to the middle part. Body suspended by elbows, electrodes on nose, nipples, testicles. What I would observe here is that Owens is describing torture in terms of body parts. We don't get a sense that there's a whole person here. Instead, he's listing out the different parts of the body to kind of, I think, create that visceral reaction. It's not just that it's a person being tortured, it's a person who has been created as body parts. The other thing that I notice in stanza 2 is that we move from a very impersonal they to a very personal young guard. We've now moved to a specific person. Let's move on to stanza 3. And there's a lot that we could say here, but I want to point out just a couple of things. We've gone from the one other one of the first stanza to the very personal he, wife, children. And we've also gone from people who are described as body parts in stanza 2 to people in stanza 3 who are whole, real people. And yet the final image, if you think about what we see there, he's afraid of what his own hands might do. In that final moment, the young guard is reduced to body parts again. And I think we can talk more about this in class when we get to the part about interpreting this poem. What is the effect of all this? I think Owens is playing with the idea that torture is a physical condition. We saw the physical up here. But it's also a mental condition, as we see here. And we might ask ourselves, what is the fate worse than death for this young soldier? Is it a physical thing or is it a mental thing? I think he's also playing with the idea of how we value human lives. Do we think of people as whole people, or are they really just the sum of their parts? All of these things are going on, and we can get to all of this simply through an analysis of the diction in the poem. I look forward to talking to you more about this poem in class. It's one that interests me in kind of a horrible way. So look forward to hearing what you have to say about it.